This is Studenica Monastery, and it's the most sacred piece of earth in the entire country of Serbia. It's packed with ancient clues of undeciphered codes hiding secrets and treasures from medieval times. And today, I have exclusive access to explore anything within the inside of its fortified perimeter walls. I want to learn about its history, the ancient carved symbols there, and why this archaeological site is the most important place to the entire country of Serbia and its culture. So to start, built from 1183 to 1196 of white marble from a neighboring mountain, the famous 12th century Studenica Monastery in Serbia is one of the most significant medieval monasteries of the Orthodox faith in all of the world. Listed as a protected UNESCO World Heritage Site, it has a layout comprised of a defensive outer circular courtyard with 2 fortified gates enclosing the inner workings of the monastery. The architectural combination of Romanesque exterior and Byzantine interior designs later became recognized as the Raška School of Architecture that the Serbians first developed, and as a result became known throughout the world. My wife has a lot of connections in a big portion of Serbia, and she pulled some strings with her priest and got us exclusive access to go in and film. This is a huge deal and a tremendous privilege because very few people have ever been allowed to film the inside of this monastery. As we enter through the East Gate, there are ruins everywhere. These on the right are the remains of the king's palaces, for when they would come here and visit, and the rooms were for the monks. These fragments of the palaces have been unearthed during recent archaeological excavations here, and other artifacts found at Studenica are presently curated in the National Museum of Serbia at the capital of Belgrade. At the other entrance, the west gate comes through the base of a bell tower built around the year 1230 AD. It overlooks a seemingly modest little church from the outside. However, in 1314, it was built by King Milutin, where on the inside, very famous frescoes are presented here. In here, what's known as the King's Church, are the best preserved frescoes from the medieval art of Serbia, and are some of the most outstanding work of the Byzantine art from the 14th century. King Milutin commissioned the very best painters of that time period to paint here. It's the beginning of the Renaissance. You can see a very strong influence of Hellenistic and ancient Greek art and Roman art. There are ladies painted here with their arms naked. That style of painting began in the West during the Renaissance, but here it's represented earlier. Making our way past ruins of other small churches and tombs of monks in the front lawn, to the south wall of the main building. Here is the oldest preserved clock in all of Serbia, a 12th century sundial in Cyrillic script. The oldest chapel dedicated to Stefan Nemanja, who later became known as Saint Simeon, is this narthex built in the 4th decade of the 14th century by King Radoslav. Frescoes above the doorway depict holy relics of the saint brought from the Holy Mount of Athos in Greece to Studenica. On the other wall is King Radoslav and his wife Anna, and on her clothes are double-headed eagles, which are symbols from the Byzantine Empire. These became the symbols of Serbia, and Studenica Monastery is where the state began. Just outside of the narthex is a structure I'm assuming is an ancient altar of sorts, but I'm not really sure. Around the altar are these bowl-shaped depressions that seem to have been worn with time from repeated use down into the marble. If any of you know what these are, please let me know in the comments section below. Greeted by griffins that were damaged during a great earthquake in the 17th century, the immense size of the west portal is intimidating. However, at the same time, you can feel centuries and centuries of history in the air. The animals and beasts represent passions and temptations that we face during our lives on the road to salvation and are coming out of the head of the devil in the center. The building is dedicated to the Virgin Mary, where she is shown here gilded with little Christ and the archangels Gabriel and Michael standing guard above the doorway. The figure of Christ and the 12 apostles surround the door frame. The tremendous careful detail in the carved marble artwork shows that they were created by some of the most skillful workers of the medieval period. Notice here how worn down the threshold is on the floor. This is from over 800 years of people stepping in the exact same place coming through the doorway. Ascending into the second room, the floor becomes higher, which symbolizes how difficult it is to come to salvation. Through the second room, showing the Last Supper and 16th century frescoes. Entering the main room of 13th century frescoes, written on the wall in Cyrillic are the sons of the monastery founder, Stefan Nemanja, and the year 1209. In the entire history of Serbian fresco paintings, this room has the first inscriptions in Cyrillic alphabet. In the altar, Jesus on his mother's chest. There is an inscription in white letters on the wall in Cyrillic that says some of the fresco renovations has taken place in the year 1568. Then, in the 19th century, when they tried to restore more of the frescoes, some damage was done when trying to put on new layers of plaster to paint over them. The conservators back then thought they had to put holes in the wall so that the new layers of plaster wouldn't fall down. At that time, they didn't know as much about restoration as they do today. And that is what these conservators are restoring now. Thought to be one of the most important frescoes of the Middle Ages and the Byzantine art from that period, is the main feature of the site, the icon of the Crucifixion of Christ. Painted in 1209, the gold halos around the heads of the Virgin Mary, St. John, Jesus, and those surrounding him are all painted in real gold. Also of prominence is the Roman soldier who pierced the side of Jesus with the Holy Lance. The figure of the young lady catching the blood of Christ symbolizes the church. It was common practice for the Turks, when warring with the Serbs, to damage and deface the frescoes of the saints from Serbian monasteries, which would be very hurtful to the Serbians. However, the very main aspect of this monastery, the immense fresco of Jesus, is perfectly preserved and was never touched by the Turks, and the explanation is believed to be a miracle of God. During the Serbians' struggles with the Turks, fearful that the Turks would steal the bones of their first king, the Serbians brought the bones of their king, along with the bones of Prince Lazar, an emperor, and relics of saints, far to the north to what was at that time a portion of the Austrian Empire, which today belongs to Serbia. Then afterwards, they brought the bones of their king back to Studenica, where they still reside today. This is the first king of Serbia, Stefan the First Crowned, in the red coffin. His father's tomb is the white marble sarcophagus. His mother is here in the silver coffin. Underneath the large marble floor slabs, many members of the Nemanjić dynasty are buried. They are not the rulers, but sisters and brothers and children of the rulers. That is why some of the inscriptions are here, such as this one, which says, "Buried here is Stefan, son of King Ulush I, who was just a boy, 2 years old when he died." But what about the many other inscriptions found throughout the monastery, such as the ones not inscribed with letters, but instead with symbols? Let's start with the most well-known symbol of the monastery, the cross of Studenica. It's in the shape of an anchor with 2 sails on its mast. It's found in Studenica and represents Stefan Nemanja and is the mark of middle century builders, symbolizing safety, being anchored to God, and growth from the plant-decorated points on the anchor. But there could be other meanings as well. Above the doorway in the west portal is an engraving similar to the cross of Studenica, but with some exceptions. This is the Golgotha cross, and it has more elements than the cross of Studenica has. Some of its meaning is known, but other clues have not yet been deciphered. Notice here on the bottom of the shaft of the cross is a 3rd cross bar, which represents the footrest for Jesus. However, one side is tilted downward and the other side upward. This is a very old form of cross style and is also found in other areas of the monastery. The meaning behind these angles are intentional and are derived from the Bible and the New Testament. When Jesus was being crucified, he hung on the cross between 2 other men. The man on the cross to the right of Jesus asked Jesus to remember him when he gets to heaven. That is why the footrest on the right side of Jesus is pointing upward toward heaven, because that is believed to be where that man went. However, the man on the cross on the left side of Jesus mocked him and said, if he truly is the Son of God, well then why can't he just get down off of the cross? And this is why the footrest on the left side of Jesus is pointing down towards the grave, because that is the belief of that man's fate. The round structure that the cross is standing on represents a skull, because Golgotha means skull in Hebrew, and was the name of the rock hilltop that Jesus was crucified on, because from a distance it resembled a skull. The Golgotha cross also includes instruments of Christ's passion, such as the spear from the Roman soldier that pierced the side of Jesus, and the sponge that was used to offer him vinegar. The 4 round circles represent the passions of Christ in the 4 canonical Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But there are other markings on this Golgotha cross that I've never seen before, and I really doubt that they're just ornate and decorative, but instead have some form of deeper meaning. If any of you have seen carvings like these from other medieval structures in Europe, please tell me in the comments section below. I'd really love to hear about it. I found several other inscriptions here throughout the monastery that likely have hidden meaning. And I think it's very possible these symbols could either be a map or clues as to what's hidden here and its location. There could even be unknown corridors and rooms underneath some of the marble floor blocks here. This place is right out of an Indiana Jones movie. I certainly did not explore every inch of the monastery, so there are probably other inscriptions and carved symbols there that I didn't find. Medieval Serbians are known to have hidden things in their monasteries. If you saw the video that I did on the Ljubostinje Monastery, Princess Milica and Prince Lazar hid their royal treasure there, and it was later found. And in the video that I did at the Žiča Monastery, some of the most important and sacred biblical relics of all time were kept there, because Saint Sava of Serbia did have very big connections in order to have obtained those precious relics. So since Studenica Monastery is the most sacred place in the entire country of Serbia, it is very likely that incredible biblical and historical artifacts have been hidden there for centuries that no one knows about. Even though archaeological work has been done here before, it's places like these that really make the mind wander and wonder about what's hidden here that we don't know of. This is the kind of archaeological site that has the potential to provide very big discoveries. Earlier in the video, we pieced together certain clues to help us realize what took place at this archaeological site. But there are much more clever methods archaeologists use. So watch this video next so that you can better understand how archaeologists use the evidence we find for figuring out what happened in the past.